Welcome to another episode of the Financial Armor Show. My name is Jose Rodriguez, investment advisor here at Cooper Financial, and your host for today, alongside my, welcome back, Tony Shore.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, like I said, this early this year, the young people are taking over, and we had Jacqueline in here a couple of times, and I already heard people saying, "Hey, I think it's kind of nicer having her here than Tony."
Oh, that's super
No.
hurtful. Super hurtful, but you know what? I understand that. She's really good. She's a natural, and that's actually a compliment to me in a way because I pretty much discovered her and said, "You need to be co-hosting shows." I mean, that's not her background, but she's very good at it,
Yeah.
and she's got a great personality. She's very knowledgeable, so she does a great job. Yeah.
She really does, you are the person to thank to find such a talent, and she bring
See, I found a way to build myself back up after that huge
yeah,
slam. So,
yeah, no, but
yeah,
she brings, a whole new perspective to things when I talk about things because her background is not in finance,
yeah,
right? So she's learning along with the listeners and
yes,
as well as herself. She even at the last show she asked for his personal. What about my situation, right?
there
Which
you go. Yeah,
it would be really nice on this one because we're talking about a very interesting topic of having you and her kind of go back and forth on today's topic. But
yeah.
before I
That
go into
we should have done that. Had both of us on
right,
this, that would have
right,
been great
yeah.
because a couple of different perspectives, different stages in life, right?
100%, and that's what
Yeah.
the today's podcast is all about. But before I go in there, I want to know what's going on in your life. Everything going all right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everything's been great, with the exception of my parents aren't doing
Mm,
so well, which brings us to the great wealth transfer. They're
yeah.
boomers who are, they're in their 80s and their health isn't well. They're both in long term care. So,
Hmm.
one of the aspects of what we're going to be talking about, or that could apply at least to today's topic, is my grandfather left some farmland in the farm where my grandpa grew up there, my dad grew up there, and I grew up there on that
Hmm.
farm.
Hmm.
And he left some of the farmland and the land with the houses and the buildings on it to my dad. And so I was looking forward to it. Hey, someday that'll be mine and I'll inherit it. But both my mom and dad are in long term care, and they
Hmm.
did not have a financial advisor like
Hmm.
yourself or work with Cooper Financial. They're up in Minnesota, and they didn't save properly.
Hmm.
So what's going to have to happen is we'll have to sell the farm, or the
To pay
state
the
will.
taxes.
Yeah, well, not just taxes, but Medicaid
Mm,
will not pay for their long-term care if
yeah.
they without taking the farm. So
Right.
um the great wealth transfer is for a lot of people like myself. That wealth is not going to transfer to me, but it's going to go to a long-term care facility or back to the
Right.
state because the state paid for their long-term care.
Right. And that's one of the key topics on today's topic is there needed to be more planning
Yep.
to prevent this from happening.
Yep, and I
And
tried when my
mhm,
grandpa was still alive to get him to set it up the right way. I told them all about the 5-year look back, and
yeah.
yeah, as you're gonna talk about today.
Yeah, and it's just it's and I know it's hard when dealing with family. It's a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, I deal with it with my own family, and that's also another topic of this of the cultural differences between these generations create a huge complexity on trying to do generational planning, where
Yeah, it's
we're
hard.
trying to plan all this money to come down to the generations and trying to have some control over it, or some we call it money scripts. Money scripts are habits that were embedded into our brains from our older generation that applied in their let's say the 80s and 70s, but in today's world those money scripts, those habits that don't necessarily apply anymore.
Mm.
One of those
It is
things is
different.
yeah,
It's
like
gotten a lot more complex, and over time, it's not as simple as passing along as it used
yeah.
to be. And so you need things like trusts. You have to look at
Yeah.
things like the 5-year look back. But before we dig into that further, and you're going to tell us what exactly the great wealth transfer is,
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you how you've been. You've been busy, you said.
Yeah, no, I've been busy, and I loved that this summer. Usually, summers are supposed to slow down for us,
Right.
and I'm actually loving that we're organically busy on the summer.
Yeah.
We've done a very, and I'm proud to say because I'm part of this growth, that we've done such a good job that a lot of people are referring people to us
Oh, yeah.
more constantly.
Yep.
That that is the biggest compliment you could ever give me.
It
You
is.
could say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I love your beard and you have really nice face," but I
Uh-huh.
don't care.
Yeah. I wouldn't say those things, but myself about your one, Jose. But I want to, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to say that. No, you're great. You're great. You're the eye candy of the show. That's for sure. Wait, if you're the eye candy in the brains, what am I? What am I doing here? For Pete's sake. Well,
Yeah.
Jose, no, that's really good. I know you've been busy and you're entering into your busy season because now we're in
Yeah.
fall. Now
So
we're in the fourth quarter. Summer, you're saying summer was busy, which it usually isn't as
right.
busy, but it has been. And now October is a big busy time of the year
It's
because of
the
things like Medicare, annual
hmm
enrollment period is now,
yeah.
year-end planning, and
Yeah,
I
tax
don't know if,
planning, all of that stuff
yeah,
happens
you
around
got
this last
it.
quarter.
It does. So
But
that's interesting. But on a lighter note, really quick, before you get into it, I will tell you. You asked me how I've been. I didn't mean to get serious with my parents, but it did apply, so I brought them
mhm,
up. But on a lighter side or an interesting side, my wife is, we're empty nesters. Our kids don't live at home anymore.
mhm,
My youngest daughter's in college, but they're not around. And my wife is out of town on business for 10 days. Right
mm,
now, she's in Nairobi, Kenya, Africa, for
okay,
5 days for her job as the director of recruiting for a healthcare company, Cassia Care,
okay.
and they're over there talking to Africa about training nurses, things like that. Then she goes to Dubai to do the same thing, and
Wow,
she'll be there, but she'll be gone 10 days. The punchline here, or the bottom line is, so I've got a question for you, Jose, and our
okay.
listeners. I'm batching it for 10 days. I'm here on my own, right? Is it wrong to order out pizza delivery 5 days a week or 7 days a week, every night of the week? Is that wrong?
Heck no. I would
I
have done the
won't do
same
that,
thing,
but
but I
it's
would change
tempting.
it every day, every other day. I would in between pizza, wings, and sushi,
Yeah,
Like,
maybe Chinese, Japanese
yeah,
food
yeah,
takeout one day.
uh,
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that every day, but it was, when my wife's out of town, she knows what's going to happen. I'm going to be calling the delivery services and getting food delivered. But at any rate, that's the situation I'm in right now. I'm batching it. I've got the bachelor pad here for 10 days. And when you've been married for 32 years, it's something else. On Sunday this past weekend, she was gone. And it's the first time that I can remember in a long time where I did nothing. I watched football all day. I ordered out pizza. And there's little yellow stickies all over the house and notes like, do this day, make sure you do this, honey-do lists. And
yep, yep.
I'm like, I'm having a day off right now. So,
Wow, that sounds like a dream, doesn't it?
but then after about 2 days, the third day, you're like, man, I wish she was here.
Yeah, you start to get pretty lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that
So
sounds awesome.
let's talk about the great wealth transfer. What is it?
Yeah, so the Great Wealth Transfer is currently happening right now. It's starting right now, and there is about $84 trillion expected to move from baby boomers to Gen X and millennials over the next 2 decades. Uh, and that causes a concern, and also an exciting things for the new millennials and Gen X's. But there's certain things that need to be addressed because some of these people, especially the millennials, have never really had probably money or don't understand it as much because they've never had it, right? And all of a sudden, boom, they get this inheritance that they didn't even know about, right? And if you're not well prepared for it, that could get in the way of your, I'm talking now the beneficiaries financial planning can get in their way and mess up their plans, because now all of a sudden they have this huge tax bill. For example, in the farm situation, what tends to happen is exactly that, where they have to liquidate it to pay for long-term care, or otherwise the state is going to all right, take it. Or uh, let's say someone in their 50s inherits a large amount of land or real estate, hard assets, and it's past that estate exemption, and they're rich, they're land rich, but they need to pay taxes on
They're
that,
cash
on those.
poor and land
Yeah, and they
rich. It's
cash
like my
poor.
dad, he didn't inherit any money.
Yeah,
He inherited real estate. And
right,
so there's no liquidity to that.
right. So
Right.
which forces people to sell land, and then they have to pay for the taxes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what tends to happen. That's what happens with poor planning, and that's something that we're trying to be very, very, very proactive on. Uh, make sure that everyone, we try to encourage, and we know it's hard, trying to include and bring on the children, the beneficiaries of someone's estate, and kind of all be on one page, right? And explain what to expect when someone passes away, and what happens when, how does that process look like, what is going to happen on the beneficiaries end when they do get this money, what does that look like, how's it going to affect them on their goals, on their investments, on their taxes, how does that all work,
Yeah.
right? So we're starting to really encourage our clients to bring in their beneficiaries, their children, and just start out with simple financial literacy. That's what it all starts. And then,
Financial education.
yep, financial literacy, and then we can build on top of that, build that foundation from financial literacy, budgeting, saving strategy, and then eventually that turns into, snowballs into investment planning, financial planning, tax planning, um, and that's what we're encouraging the most. I know previous generations don't necessarily like talking about those finances with their children.
Yeah, my grandfather and my father, getting them to talk about it seriously to me and take me seriously, even though
Yeah.
I work in the financial world and
Hmm.
talk to you and Brad every week about these things. And so I try to pass on, hey, you really need to be doing this. My grandfather never talked about finances with anyone, and
Yeah.
didn't like to, and neither does my father. So.
Yeah. So now you grew up with that, and how do you manage that now with your kids?
Well, they are educated in financial literacy, like you said. I agree, that's the answer. And so my kids, like my daughter, who's 22, she puts away money into a Roth IRA every single month. And
Good.
so, I've talked to them. I bring them in to my meetings with my financial. I say, bring them in, talk to Brad, bring your
Hmm.
kids in to talk to Jose and Brad about it.
Hmm.
Um, you don't do financial planning per se for people that young, but for their families, if you're doing it for somebody who has a lot of money saved up, it's in their best interest to make sure their kids understand, especially if their kids are over 18, for sure, then
Hmm.
make sure they understand the plan and understand finances, and that, they need to start building wealth, and they need to understand, estate planning.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason we start with financial literacy is because studies show that 70% of families lose inherited wealth by the second generation, and over 90% by the third.
Wow.
On the study, they call it the third generation curse. So, let's say I'm talking to a client that you worked your whole life, 30, 40 years of career to build your nest egg, and you've done everything in your power to protect it from taxes, investments, make sure that if the market goes down, you don't lose everything. And that's we've worked together to make that happen for you. And then you pass away, you meet your maker, and then you give it to the beneficiaries, your kids or whoever it may be. And because they didn't have that prime, that prep of the financial literacy, there's a higher likelihood of being in that third generation curse where everything is lost. So
Yeah.
everything that they've worked so hard for is all gone by either the first or second generation, and that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to prevent.
Yeah, and you need to work with you need a good estate planning attorney who understands these things, the wealth transfer, and can work with you and your kids and meet with the whole family to make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's what my grandfather didn't do, and that's what causes problems. But you have to work with a good one who knows how to, okay, if you want to preserve this money so they're not going to lose it all in taxes or lose it to the state for long-term care, or it doesn't all go to some long-term care facility, here's what you need to do. And somebody who knows that. If they're not talking about those things or telling you, hey, there's a 5-year look back period, the state could come after this money. Sure, you've got enough to pay for a lot of long-term care, but do you want that money to go to the facility, or do you want it to go to the kids?
Yeah,
There are things you can do to make sure that your kids or grandkids get that money and not the state or the government. Or there's things
yeah.
to do that you can do to preserve that wealth. But you're right, it starts with education of your
Hmm.
beneficiaries, right?
Right. Yeah, it does. And we're seeing more and more people starting to take advantage of it. And I'll say this because I feel like, from my experience, I feel like a lot of people are not bringing this up to us. I think they have it in their mind that they think they should do this,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't think to bring it up to us because they think that we won't do it. It's like, well, would you be willing to talk to my son? He has no money. He's just starting his first adult job, and he's starting to have some money, and he just needs help with knowing how to manage that income.
Yeah,
I would love to. it's
that's
not it's
great.
not it's not always about making money or anything like that. I think helping the whole family as a collective, I think that is very beneficial. And I just wanted to put this out there into for our listeners in YouTube and in our podcast apps, that don't feel bad to ask about that. You,
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable asking for those kinds of favors because I would love to, and I'll do it anytime that I can.
Yeah, I think that's smart, because you're helping the family, and you want to, you're obligated, and you want to do what's best for your clients, and meeting with their children, their adult children, and helping them, or even teenagers, getting them on the right track. That's important.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's going to help your client, and then uh, in that way help you. In the long run, it helps everybody. But yeah, I'm glad you're willing to meet with younger people and help the whole family. That is huge, and not all financial advisors are like that, but the good ones are, and that's really good. But those statistics you shared are staggering. 70%
Hmm.
of families lose their inherited wealth by the second generation,
Yeah.
and by the third, over 90% have lost it all. It's almost like the stats for people who win the lottery, right?
a hundred
when
percent.
when you get a chunk of money all at once, it's a problem.
Hmm.
Taxes, spending too much. Oh, I got all this money now. What do I do? Spend it.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
wrong attitude,
That
right?
is the wrong attitude, and that's
Yeah.
why sometimes we're just emotional coaches, if you will. Just, hey, let's slow it down here. I know we just got a big inheritance. Let's just talk about what it means, what's valuable to you, what are your goals, and then start from there and go from there.
Yeah,
Essentially.
I think that's important. And like you said, there's generational gaps, and you need to bridge those gaps. And again,
Yeah.
the way to do that is with education. That's huge.
Yeah, and communication, being completely honest, like I kind of jump in there as a mediator of those conversations, because sometimes they're at odds with each other, the parents and the
Oh, sure.
kids, and and they both have their opinions and feelings,
Sure.
and they each need to be validated, and
Yeah.
make sure that they're not yelling at each other in their office.
Right. Right.
So I try to bridge that gap of, okay, this is what worked in your situation, mom and dad. It just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for your kids. So it might be a different strategy, that accomplishes similar things, but because of their age,
Mhm.
it just looks different than yours,
Yeah.
and that's something that it just needs to be explained.
Yeah.
And coming from us, I think creates a bigger impact than, let's say, if their children bring it up by themselves.
Yeah. So Jose Rodriguez, financial advisor, family counselor, marriage counselor, family
Yeah.
therapist, marriage counselor.
Yep.
You wear a lot of hats over there, don't you?
In this business, you have to. And
Right.
honestly, being a young guy with our clients and I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, you just learn from people's experiences. And I'm so blessed to be able to have an opportunity to share those little nuggets of life that I get to learn with my clients, and I get to change people's lives with it. So
That's
it's such
awesome.
a blessing.
It is. I think that's great. And so, another big part of this, obviously, is a plan. Having a plan in place is going to
100%.
help you with the great wealth transfer, and not only estate planning, but make sure that's rolled into all of your planning, like your retirement income plan. That has to be a part of it, right?
Yeah, the income plan that which turns into the tax planning, which turns into the investment planning. It all goes hand in hand,
Right.
and therefore also long-term care planning, which it all goes together, right?
Right.
Estate planning, long-term care planning, investments, and taxes,
Yeah.
right? It all goes hand in hand. And another thing that I would like to say is that some people like to silo all those things. Well, I have my broker, I have my CPA, and I have my attorney, and they all never talk to each other.
Yeah,
And that
and
is
I have
not,
my insurance guy over here
yeah,
separate. So they have all these people, but nobody's quarterbacking or coaching the
nope.
situation.
And that
And you
is
do
such a
need to
huge
talk
mistake.
to tax professionals. You need a tax preparer for each year. But is your tax person looking ahead to your retirement? Do they know your overall retirement plan and
Yeah.
picture?
Most
Uh,
chances, most of the time, they're not. Same
no.
thing with the attorney,
And
and
that's
same
the
thing with the
difference in
insurance
what you
guy.
do, right?
Yeah, and
At
that's where
Cooper
we come in.
Financial.
That's where we come in, and that's what I find with all these people that are coming in that are new. That they say, "Well, I have this guy and this guy," and well, have you ever had them all in the room with each other or in
Right.
constant communication? No. I was like, well, we need to change that because this is all that could happen. Everything,
Yeah.
all the risks that we talked about today, all the things that could happen, most likely happen to those people that don't necessarily have everyone collectively working together.
Right. Right. Yeah. I
So
think
it's all about
that's,
building that plan.
yeah. I know it is, and I think that's great. Now, before we go today, is there anything you want our listeners out there to know? What information can you give them so they can get a hold of you and the team there at Cooper Financial and set up that no charge, no obligation consultation?
No, yeah, they can come to the show's website, financialarmorshow.com, or call our phone number, 888-390-5277. Or they can also go to our cooperfinancial.com website and schedule it there as well.
Yep, that's great. Well, thanks, Jose. I really appreciate the show today, all the great information. It helps me to hear about this too, because I've been dealing with it. And I
Mhm.
think so many of our listeners out there, if they're not dealing with it yet, they will have to. And the thing is, sooner rather than later,
Yep,
right?
100%,
Uh,
100%.
all right. So, what's that phone number and web address one more time before we
Is
go?
888-390-5277, and the website is financialarmorshow.com.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Jose Rodriguez.